Hello and welcome back to another weekly recap on your maths studies. This week we are looking at circles, area, circumference, and volume of cuboids and prisms and a cylinder as well. So first of all, we need to get ourselves in the right state of mind. What reason are we doing this? It's because we want to achieve a better grade. So the reason we're going through these videos and watching them is because we want to try and improve our grade. So watching them week by week, or maybe watching a couple every now and again, is really going to help boost your grade and recaps everything that you need to know. Okay, let's begin. So before we get into it, let's just learn, I'll try and jog our memories about different parts of the circle. Obviously this purple part, the outside of a circle, we'd call the perimeter, but it's actually, when it's a circle, it's got a special name. I think we went over this in an earlier video, but this is the circumference. Okay, a line, this pink one, a line that goes from one side of the circumference to the other, okay, at any point, is called a chord. A chord that goes all the way through the center of the circle, the other side, so this green line, is called the diameter. A line that goes from the center to the outside, to the circumference, is a radius. And a line that goes next to the circumference, but doesn't actually go into the circle, just goes along and next to the circumference and out, is called a tangent. Okay. The next thing we need to know about circles is when we're calculating with them, we use something called pi. And it's a symbol that looks like this, and pi. And this symbol stands for 3.14, and it has a load of other numbers going on. It goes on infinitely, it goes on forever. But we need to know 3.14. Okay, if we don't remember that, or we know a quicker way, or we want to be more accurate, what we can do is use the pi button on your calculator. To do that, you press shift here at the top, and then you come down to the bottom line, and you've got this button here. Okay, I've zoomed it in here, it's this one, and you can see it's got a little pi symbol above it. So if you press shift, and then this button, on the display, it will give you the pi symbol. Okay, so either memorize 3.14, or remember shift, and then the pi button along at the bottom. Okay, this way is more accurate, but you'll still get your marks if you use 3.14. Okay, so to calculate the circumference of a circle, what we need to do, the formula is pi multiplied by d, where d is the diameter. So for this one, we're doing pi times d, so it's going to be pi times 1, and if you put that into your calculator, so shift and then the pi button and then times by 1, it'll give us this answer, pi. Okay, 1 times pi is pi. Okay, if we press the SD button, it's then going to give us 3.14, which we're going to round down to 3.1. Okay, number 2, we're doing pi times d, so pi times 12, which first of all, when you press equals, it's going to give us 12 pi. And then if we put now into, let me just put it into the calculator, 12 pi. If we press the SD button, it's going to give us 37.699. I'm going to round that to 37.7 centimeters. Okay, this is centimeters as well. So the reason I'm saying about the 12 pi, because sometimes in the exam now, it'll say leave your answer in terms of pi. So what you need to do is then put your either answer, if it says in terms of pi, you will write this one. If it says in centimeters, you will write in this one. Okay, moving up here. Again, it's the radius. So the radius, if we look back at the image, the radius goes from the outside to the center, and the diameter goes all the way through. So the radius is actually half the length of a diameter. We need a diameter in order to calculate the circumference. So we need pi times d. We've only got pi times r here. So what we need to do is double this length, which is 1.5, to get the diameter. So it's actually going to be pi times by 3, which is going to give us 3 pi, or 9.424, which I'm just going to round to 9.4, and that's centimeters. Next one again, we've got 4.5 centimeters for the radius. We need to double that to get the diameter, which is going to give us a diameter of 9. So it's going to be pi times 9, which obviously is 9 pi, which is equal to 28.274, which I'm going to round to 28.3 centimeters. Okay, so that's the circumference. Next, we're going to look at the area, and for the area, we need pi multiplied by the radius squared. So write that up here. For the area of a circle, it's pi multiplied by the radius r squared. We've all heard pi r squared before. Okay, for the first one then, so that means we have to take whatever the radius is, we square it, and we multiply it by pi. So here, we've got 5 as the radius, so pi times 5 squared. You can put that all into your calculator in one go, using the squared button along the top. So shift pi times 5 squared button equals, so that gives us 25 pi, that's in terms of pi, which is equal to 78.53, so I'm just going to round that to 0.5, and this is now going to be, because we're finding area, it's going to be centimeters squared. Okay, for your next one, you've got 2, so again, it's pi multiplied by 2 squared, which is going to give us 4 pi. So in your calculator, shift pi times 2 squared equals 4 pi, which is 12.56. Oh, sorry, it's been equals. Which I'm going to round to 12.6 centimeters squared. Here, it's given us the diameter. So now we know that the diameter, the radius we need, is half of the diameter. So we only need from here to here. So this is going to need to half this number, which is 0.5. So now we're going to do pi times 0.5 squared. So in your calculator, shift pi times 0.5 squared, which gives us a quarter pi. Okay, unlikely you'll get this one in your exam, but it's worth knowing. A quarter pi, which is equal to 0.785, which I'm just going to round to 0.8 centimeters squared. And our last one again, we only need this distance between these two, because we want the radius, which is this distance. So it's 3.5. So pi multiplied by 3.5 squared. So shift pi multiplied by 3.5 squared is, well, 49 over 4 pi, which is equal to 38.5 centimeters squared. Okay, so that's everything on circles. Very quickly run through, but you can always go through and watch it again. So next we're going to carry on looking at area, but we're going to be looking at area of a rectangle. So hopefully you can remember the area of a rectangle is length times width, which here the length is 8 and the width is 6. So 8 times 6 is 48 centimeters squared. And the area of a triangle, so we've got 3 numbers here. Remember, area of a triangle is length times width over 2. So we multiply the length, or base times height if you prefer, base times height over 2. Some people do it that way. So length times the width is these two. So this is your length, this is your width. Okay, the diagonal line is not to be used for anything. Okay, so we don't ever use a diagonal line when we're working on areas. So the area of this would be 6 times 5 divided by 2, which is 6 times 5 is 30, divided by 2 is 15 millimeters squared. So remember, never use that diagonal line. It's only the height and the width. So we've looked at area of 2D shapes. So we've got the area of a rectangle and the area of a triangle. Volume is the 3D representation of a shape. So the calculation is actually quite similar. So when we're working with area, it's the length times the width. For volume, it's almost exactly the same. It's the length times the width. So you'll be working out this square on the end, 3 times 3. And then you just simply multiply it again by the depth. So it's length times width times depth. So for here, we're going to do 3 times 3, which is the front face, and then times that by 6. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 54 centimeters cubed now. Because we're into volume, we're talking about cubic units. Okay, a little 3 there. Okay, calculating the volume of this one. Again, we'll try and find the face of a front. So let's do this face. It's facing us anyway. So it's going to be 6 by 4. And then multiply that by the depth, which is 3. So 6 times 4 times 3, which gives us, let's write it out, 6 times 4, which is the front face, times by 3, which gives us 72 centimeters cubed. Okay, so that's the volume of a cuboid. Here we've got a cube. So if we're working on a cube, it means all the sides are the same. So we've got the length is going to be 4. The width is going to be 4. And the depth is going to be 4. So it's 4 times 4 times 4. So 4 times 4, 16, times 4 is 64 centimeters cubed. Okay, this is where the idea of cube numbers come from. So multiplying the same number by itself and by itself again gives us a cube number. So 64 is a cube number. Just a quick rundown of the important cube numbers. 1, you've got 1 times 1 times 1, 8, 27, 64, and 1, 2, 5. They're the most important ones you need to remember. So if you see any of these numbers, remember they are cube numbers, as well as even numbers, odd numbers, square numbers. We have to remember these are cube numbers. Okay, so when we're given two values and we have to find the third, it's telling us that the volume of this cuboid is 63 centimeters cubed. Find x. So we find the area of this part like we would normally. 3 times 3, which is 9. So that area is 9 centimeters squared. And to work out this value of x, well, we have to think, well, what is 63 divided by 9? Because this number here, if we times by it, 9 by it, it's going to make 63. So we do 63 divided by 9, which is just going to give us 7. So it's just 7 centimeters. Not centimeters squared, not centimeters cubed, because it's just the length of this line, it's just centimeters. Okay, looking at the volume now of a triangular prism. A triangular prism is a triangle and just a long triangle. Long 3D triangle. So the method is the same. You find the area of the front face, the triangular face. So here, we're going to do 4 times 5 divided by 2, because that's how we find the area of a triangle. And then we multiply that by how deep it is. So the depth, which is 3. So 4 times 5 is 20, divided by 2 is 10, times by 3 is 30. So the volume would be 30 centimeters cubed. So down here, we've got 4 numbers though now. So if we remember back to when we looked at the triangle, remember nothing on a slope is used. So we ignore this number. We don't use anything that's on a diagonal. So we've got 2 times by 18. Okay, so we've got to find the area of the triangle first. And then divide that by 2, okay, which gives us 18 again. And then we multiply that by the depth, which is 5, and that gives us a volume of this triangular prism of 90 centimeters cubed. So just so we go over it again, we've got the length, got the width, and we've got the depth there. Okay, this diagonal line has no part of it whatsoever. Okay, moving up here then, we've got 5, 3, 4, and 2. Okay, remember, it's the length times the width, or base times height, divided by 2. So the length is going to be 5 here. The base is 5. The height, it's not the 4, because that's on a diagonal line. It's this height directly up. So from here to here would be 2. So that's our height. The height is directly up. If we can see, it's got a right angle. So the height, the perpendicular height it's called, the height straight up. So it's 5 times 2 divided by 2 and then multiplied by the depth, which is 3. So 5 times 2 is 10. Divided by 2 is 5. Multiplied by 3 is going to give us 15 centimeters cubed. Okay, that's your volume of triangular prisms. Okay, so we're just going to put everything together that we've looked at today. So we've got here a cylinder. We're going to find the area of the top of the cylinder first. So we're going to find this area, and then we'll multiply it by the depth of the cylinder. So remember, to find the area of the cylinder, it's pi multiplied by the radius squared. We see the radius here is 4, so we're going to do pi multiplied by 4 squared, which is going to give us 16 pi. So shift pi times 4 squared, and that's going to give us 50.26548246. Okay, instead of pressing cancel and then putting 50.26 into my calculator, I'm going to keep the display I've got here, the full number, and I'm just going to press multiply. So the whole number there, multiply that by the depth, which is 3, and it's giving me my answer of 48 pi now, which is equal to 150.7964474. I'm going to round it to one decimal place, so I'm going to round it to 150.8, and it's centimeters cubed. Okay, so again, thanks for watching. I hope you find it useful to go over these videos. Again, at the start of each slide, you can pause it, have a go, and obviously then watch the explanation. I think it's going to be probably one of the better ways of consuming these videos. Yeah, so we're getting there now. We've probably got about 10 more videos left to do, and then we'll be completely done. So make sure you are going back, and anything you're missing, catch up on. It helps for when you're revising for our weekly tests to go back and have a look at what we've been doing over a few weeks and get caught up. It's always useful to keep going backwards and forwards and keeping up with everything we're doing. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and remember, ask yourself what you want to get at the end of this year and how are you going to get there. Okay, see you next week.